This will probably make them not be quiet anymore.
I read all these, guys. I read all these books. Hello. Welcome to another video. I have a February wrap up for you today. And as usual, here's my stack that we're starting with. This is about 13 books, I think, that I have physically still. I read 29 books this month. So this month I read 29 books, 9,696 pages, and my average rating was a 3.7, which isn't too bad. I read 12 books from my physical TBR, 11 from the library or from Libby, and 5 ARCs. 12 of those reads were physical only, and then 5 were audio only, and then 13 were some kind of combination of audio and physical, as sometimes I like to go back and forth while I'm doing things around the house. I thought we would try something different. Instead of just telling you my reads randomly, I think I'm going to go from least liked to most liked. I think that's the plan. First, I will start with my DNFs. I am not going to tell you too much about these because I do have them in a vlog either coming up or just went up. Anyway, so I decided to DNF Immortal Consequences. This one I got from Book of the Month because it was so pretty, but it was just a little bit too YA for me. So I decided that this will be better suited for a friend's daughter. So I'm going to pass this along to her. This is about purgatory, where a bunch of teenagers, if they died and instead of ascending to the next whatever, they are in purgatory and they have to reap souls, and they are forever, perpetually, for possibly hundreds of years in a high school type situation. So yeah, I'm going to pass this one on, but I thought the premise sounded really cool. No more young adult fantasy for me without the library first, or without a bunch of people telling me I should read it. I also DNF'd The Center of Everything. This is a slice of life, coming of age, I believe in the 80s, single mother and the daughter dealing with the consequences of her mom being a single mother and just growing up and growing older. And I thought I wasn't getting enough of the inner thoughts of the main character, and it was just seemed to be more like life was happening to her instead of the other way around, so I DNF'd it. And The Street Between the Pines, I also DNF'd. This one is an indie author, and I believe lives in Connecticut or used to live in Connecticut, and there are lots of things that I recognize and places I recognize in here, but this book was not gripping me. The writing was okay. There was a lot of really random details in here. So that didn't really mean anything, and I was confused by it, and I decided to DNF it. Then I looked up some of the reviews, and yeah, I'm glad I DNF'd it. There's also some really stereotypical depictions of some sort of Spanish-speaking person, and I didn't dig that either. For my 2 stars of the month, I read The Macabre by Kasoka Jackson. This was a book that I primarily picked up because it was so pretty, and I love the idea of going into these creepy paintings and it being horror. However, it didn't end up being a horror. It ended up being more of a fantasy. It almost reminded me of National Treasure or some kind of treasure hunting mission vibe. Our main character, Lewis, is recruited to this British museum to try and destroy and find these paintings because they're magical and they're causing trouble. And I liked the beginning. It's definitely more fantasy than horror. I liked the beginning. I thought it was interesting. Our main character is a gay black man, and he is dealing with that and being recruited by this British museum and, you know, colonialism. Why are we destroying these paintings that were painted by his ancestors? Yeah, but the paintings are truly horrific, and the scenes of the first few paintings were really, really cool. But then I just slowly kind of lost interest in the plot. I was able to finish it, but I ended up giving it a 2-star, and it ended up being one of my least favorite books of the month. Another one I read that I don't have anymore that I also gave 2 stars was Moonflow by Bitter Corella. And this book, it's a very queer horror fantasy-ish book about a trans woman, and her name is Sarah, and she sells mushrooms. And she has trouble getting a normal job because she's trans and she doesn't look, I guess she just doesn't pass very well. And she has trouble getting and keeping a job because of that. And so she sells these mushrooms, and the mushrooms she's been selling aren't in vogue anymore. So she goes out searching for this mushroom in this forest that's supposedly mysterious and a lot of people go missing and die in. Like, they literally find their way around by dead bodies and skeletons. So a lot of people die in that forest, and then they get caught up with this very weird lesbian turfy cult, which is very much, they come off as like this really weird parody of militant turfy lesbians. She gets mixed up with that in the forest when they get lost. Then there's some more mushroomy stuff, and everybody has weird nicknames. I ended up giving this one a 2. The cover is magnificent. It's probably one of my favorite covers that I've seen in a while. And I love the mushroom story. Yeah, there's also pregnancy in this, so just be aware of that. Very crass language, which I just kind of got tired of at times. I didn't really care about anybody except for maybe our main character. And like everybody has weird nicknames in this cult, and I got really tired of reading about them. The middle sections, once we got to the cult, I just kind of lost interest in it. I know it's a parody of it, and I know that I understand kind of what it was doing, but it just didn't work for me overall, my enjoyment level. And then in the end, there's this really cool culmination of things that I thought was really neat, and I liked the imagery of it. But as a whole, my enjoyment of that book was a 2. How to Kill a Guy. I read How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates by Shaylee Thompson. I didn't really enjoy this one, unfortunately. I read this for Literally Dead Book Club, and I gave it a 2.25. And the reason that this got a 2.25 is because it was a little too on the nose for me. Was it a slasher romance? Sure. But I was able to really see everything coming. I needed to be a little bit more surprised. Our main girl, Jamie, drove me absolutely bonkers. I really was hoping that she'd die, even though I knew she was not going to. She talks about espresso martinis a lot. She thinks she knows everything about slasher films, where I'm like, girl, you're not making very good choices for someone who says they love slasher films. So anyway, she drove me crazy. It became sort of a hate read. The last third of it, the last half of it was way too long. And I had a good time chuckling at how bad it was. So maybe, you can maybe up to a 3 for that. But for me, this just didn't work. I'm going to be unhauling this, which is too bad because the cover is really cute. The book I also gave a 2.5 was She's Always Hungry by Eliza Clark. This was my first time reading Eliza Clark. I'm going to try her full-length novels also, but this one just didn't do it for me. I honestly can't really even remember many of the stories. Let me see what my favorites were. I really liked the Extinction Event story, but that was the only one I loved. It's the only one that stuck out to me. The rest were just okay, and there were some I really didn't like, and so I ended up giving that a 2.5. My next 2-star is a 2.5, and this is an ARC coming out this month. You Did Nothing Wrong by C.G. Drews. This is also the author of Hazelthorne, which I loved. Don't Let the Forest In, which I kind of liked. This is their first adult horror, I believe. I would call this more of a thriller first, then horror. And it is sort of domestic. It is about this woman named Elodie and her husband Bren, and she has a son named Jude. So yeah, and she had him before getting married. So she has a son named Jude who is very autism coded, right? So he has autism. I don't think they ever say it in there because Elodie is very much in denial. She doesn't want to get him help of any kind. And she is really abusive and horrible and hard to read from. That was really difficult to read. So this one is really hard for me to tell you about without spoiling something. Jude starts acting a little weird. He says that the house, they're trying to renovate this house. He says the house doesn't like it when you do that. He's seeing things. She starts to see things. We don't really know why. And the mystery is slowly uncovered. Let's just say the resolution of that I did not like. I'm okay. Like, things don't have to be end in a way I like. However, this particular one, there were some added things that I thought made the messages and the story go a little off for me. I can't really tell you more without giving you spoilers, but yeah, that was a 2.5 for me. I read Your Blood, My Bones. This was my last 2, I think, by Kelly Andrew. This book I picked up a long time ago when I was just picking out books willy-nilly. And by a long time ago, I think this was like 2025 or 24, maybe? Yeah, 2024. The Whispering Dark I had also picked up, and I hadn't tried either of them. And I knew they're sort of an interconnected series in the same world. I read The Whispering Dark and I gave it a 3. And then this one I ended up giving a 2.75. It was fine. I think if I was a young adult target audience for this, I would have liked it more. It's very melancholy and dark and isolated. We have Wyatt, and she inherits this mansion estate, and she goes to the estate and she finds her childhood friend chained up in the basement. And she doesn't know why. So we're uncovering all these mysterious things, and there's magic involved. And my main thing with this is I just didn't care. And Jamie is the boy that's chained up, and he is mysterious, and Wyatt is clueless. And Wyatt and Jamie had this relationship from their childhood, but we don't really get to see it. We don't get enough of that development, and I just didn't care. So I gave it a 2.75. I'm going to be unhauling this as well. So now it's time for my 3 stars. My first 3-star is Automatic Noodle. I vlogged this as well. Who wrote this? Annalie Newitz. I enjoyed this. This is it's kind of a cozy sci-fi about a bunch of robots that after there's this big war, they get some semblance of autonomy. They are humanistic, like they have, sentience, I guess, and they are given somewhat like sort of citizenship, but not really. They have a lot of things that they don't get to do, and they try to open up this noodle shop, and it's about them opening up a noodle shop and trying to find purpose in this new world. And I thought it was interesting and fun, but just kind of okay for me, entertainment wise. So I gave it a 3. The next 3 I have is My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. I read this actually completely on audio. I wanted to read it for Gabby's book club, The Troop. So I did. I listened to it. It's a good audiobook, except for there is like some sound effects in the background, but I don't think added anything to it. It was more distracting for me, but I mean, some people may like that. There's like waves and footsteps and things like that. But this is about Eden, and she goes out for a run one day. They just moved to this islandy, I don't think it's an island, coastal town. And she comes back from her run and knocks on the door, and the person that answers says that she's Eden Fox and that's her house, and what are you doing here? And we slowly unravel the mystery of it. I thought this was a solid thriller. I gave it a 3.25. Yeah, 3.25. It didn't piss me off too much, but I did think the unraveling towards the end was a little much for me. I kind of got annoyed by it. But like I said, I thought it was an okay thriller. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I just thought it was fine. I read Keeping 13, again, primarily on audio through Libby, and that is the sequel, second part to Binding 13. We have Johnny, and we have his issues, and we have Shannon and her tumultuous family life, and we have Joey, her brother, and we have Gainsey. I want to say Gainsey again, but it's Gibbsy, and he's still silly and still fun. This one, I gave a 3.25. Oh, no, a 3.5. These books, like I said before last month, they just grew on me. I've really gotten to know the characters. I think that I could have DNF'd the first one, but I just kind of pushed through, and I really just started to like them a whole lot. So I ended up giving a 3.5. I don't know if I will continue. I really enjoyed the relationship that Shannon has with her mother, Johnny's mother. And Johnny's mother is really the MVP of this. And yeah, there's a lot of talk of family abuse and alcoholism and addiction in this, so just be aware of that. The moment that Johnny's mom has with Joey is just like heartbreaking, and it was really good. I don't know if I will continue. The next ones are following Joey, and that's my brother's name, and it's just weird, like especially like Joey being an addict in these books and stuff. It's just a little bit too much for me. I don't know if I'd want to read about that, but maybe one day I will give them a try. I don't know. Next is Eternal Ruin by Tagus Gurma. This is the sequel to Immortal Dark, which I have around here somewhere, and it's very pretty. And this one I ended up giving a 3.5. Eternal Ruin, I don't know if I said that. I talked about this a lot in a vlog. I just find these to be they're very plot driven, and the plot is interesting and the world is really interesting, but the main 2 characters I just don't care that much about. I actually care more about the side characters. At this point, since it is a trilogy, I will probably read the 3rd one at some point when it comes out, because I want to know where this will wrap up. Our main gal has really been through it in the end of this one, like just keeps getting hit over the head with things. But what happened in the end, I didn't care all that much because, like I said, I really don't care about the main characters. I'm not really rooting for their relationship. I don't really. So yeah, I mostly read and will continue this to find out what happens with the story. I don't know if I will buy it. I may pick it up on audio, or maybe and then if I really like it, complete the trilogy, or I may just unhaul them. But I did give this one a 3.5. The first one I gave a 4. It could be a middle book syndrome. I don't know, but I do feel like it's very convoluted and there's a lot going on. There's just a lot going on. And if you want to know about it, you can watch my blog. It is in my Jante's Inferno vlog, the first one. Next is another 3. I read Grimory Grammar School and I gave this a 3.5. This is about a little girl named Aria and her mother, and they are trying to fit in to a new school. I think she's a kindergartner, and because Aria, over the summer, had a very traumatic thing happen, she got turned into a werewolf. So her mom is trying to adjust to this new life with a daughter who's a werewolf, and she's not a werewolf. Her mom and her dad, they're not werewolves, so they have to figure all this out, figure out this new world. So she ends up in this school with other paranormal kids. She has to learn the lay of the land, and her mom's trying real hard to fit in with the PTO and the PTA and trying to make it so her daughter can stay in this school, because every 3 years, I think, could be cut and kicked out of the school, and she doesn't know what she'll do after that because her daughter's a werewolf and she needs guidance and friends that are different too. So I thought this was cute. I gave it a 3.5. It was heartwarming and entertaining and cozy and all the things that you would expect from a book like this. Caitlin Rozakis, I have read from before. I read Dreadful and I like this one better. This one worked better for me. Actually really lucked out and found this for $4, and it's a pretty new book used at the Book Barn, so that was exciting. That one's a 3.5. And Impossibility of Crows. This was an arc that comes out this month, and this is a story of a chemist has a child, and the child is disabled, loses her job for some reason or decides to not have the job, I don't remember, and they move out with her husband to a farmhouse that she used to live in when she was a child, and they find a barn. And in this barn there are some eggs, and the eggs are crow eggs, and the mother slowly kind of becomes obsessed with these crow eggs. She hatches them and then she breeds them, and she's trying to make them stronger and faster and more intelligent and bigger, much bigger. And eventually she becomes so obsessed with these crows that her daughter and her husband are like, peace out, because you're not paying any attention to us. You don't seem to care about this house we're supposed to fix up and sell. You don't seem to care about your daughter, and you're just obsessed with these crows. So we out. The reason I picked this up was because I really love crows. I think they're fascinating creatures. Ever since watching The Crow when I was in high school, I've loved crows. So I was like, I'll pick up this arc. I enjoyed it. I ended up giving it a 3.5. The writing style is a little difficult for me. It's very piecemeal. You get diary entries and memories and writing letters and etc. It's primarily a story about mothers and daughters and the things we inherit, right? So physical things, but also trauma and things like that. And it sort of has a Frankenstein feel to it because Agnes is the mom. Agnes is trying to create this creature to, she says, have her daughter fly on its back because her daughter has, I think, some kind of spina bifida or palsy. I don't know if they actually ever say. And instead of meeting her daughter where she's at, she's like becomes obsessed with this idea of her daughter riding on a crow, which is ridiculous. And so she creates this giant crow creature, and then things start happening, and the crow flies away, and it comes back with maybe some bits and bobs that are pieces of people. So she has to figure out what to do with that. So it's the whole plot of it is really interesting. Talking with my hands a lot today. The writing just left me, I had a hard time with the pieces and getting them all put together. However, the story I really liked, and I honestly would pick this up. I wouldn't mind actually reading this again to get a better handle on it, but it's like very Frankenstein-y, and there's also a sister relationship in there, and Agnes is looking back at her mother and things that happened in this house, and her father was abusive and neglectful and things like that. So it's it's all kind of, it comes together. Next, I gave Mongrels a 3.5 by Stephen Graham Jones. This is Stephen Graham Jones's take on werewolf stories. I enjoyed this, but because of the nature of werewolves, they have to move around a lot. So this became kind of sort of a road trippy kind of story, which I don't always love. I never felt like I got to know the characters all that well. It's well written, of course, it's Stephen Graham Jones, but I didn't love it as much as a lot of his other things, and I ended up giving a 3.5, but I'm still very happy to have read it. So I also read Wild Blood, and I talked about this in a vlog as well, by Jute Foster. I ended up giving this a 3.5 as well. I like this one. It was a very indie romantasy. It's a standalone, I believe, and it is about a woman named, I don't know, and it's about a woman who's in a horrible marriage, and it's in a fantasy world, and she's supposed to make an heir so that this lord or whatever she's married to can have a male heir that maybe has some abilities that she has, but her husband makes her suppress them and says they're evil and wild. She has wild blood. So she escapes and she goes to a school and she tries to learn about her powers, and there's this guy there that helps her maybe, but doesn't think that she can control her power, and then they have to deal with her ex-husband coming back and trying to take her, etc. And it was good. I liked it enough. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it. There's just a lot going on. I feel like it could have been, like this journey of her leaving and going to the school could have been just one book. It's because it was just felt rushed. Often, sometimes standalones do that. So, but I still liked it. Next, in the threes, I gave this a 3.75. This is Whistle by Lincoln Barclay. Linwood Barclay. This is a horror book. It's just a classic-y, it's not classic, but it's a classic feeling horror book. Writing reminiscent, in my opinion, to Stephen King. It is a story about a woman and her son, and she's had a lot of tragedy happen recently. Her husband died, and a kid who read her book jumped off a building and died, and she's been in the news because of that, so she needs to get away. They go to a house for the summer in upstate New York. They are from New York City, and her son finds these trains in the shed, and weird things start to happen. And then we also follow a detective dealing with weird things happening in his whole town, and weird deaths, missing people, bodies showing up. And so we're unraveling the mystery of that. I actually really liked this. I really liked the relationship between the mother and the son. I liked the way Linwood Barclay brought everything together in the end. I thought it was entertaining. It's just a classic-y, non-lit ficky horror. And, sometimes you need a good story, I didn't super care about them, but I cared about them enough, and I wanted them to succeed. And the creepy parts are pretty creepy, and the gory parts are pretty gory. And the only reason this didn't get a 4 is because I thought Barclay gave up Barclay gave us some information earlier than he should have, in my opinion. I would have liked to have been kept on the hook for a little bit longer. But he does that thing that Stephen King does too, where he gives away the death. Oh, this is the last time we saw him, and things like that, which also drives me a little bit crazy. It's like, you're preparing me so I don't have as big a reaction, but maybe I want to have that big reaction. I want to be surprised, Mr. Barclay, Mr. King. But yes, I enjoyed this, and I ended up giving it a 3.75. Dance break. I read Fruiting Bodies. I'm going to say I read every time. I read all these guys. I read all these books. I read Fruiting Bodies. This is my second short story collection of the month, and I like this one a lot more. This is a lot more mixed genres in it. There's some things that read very literary fiction. There's a little bit of horror in here too. There's some sci-fi, just a lot of different things in here that I really enjoyed. Let me figure out what stories I liked though. And I actually wrote down and rated all these stories, I believe, and when I averaged them all out, it came to a 3.75. So I gave this a 4 on Goodreads, And this is by Katherine Harlan. My favorite stories were Fruiting Bodies, which was about a lesbian couple, and one of them grows mushrooms on her body, and they harvest them and eat them sometimes. But they don't eat the poison ones. They bury them in their backyard. But that one was interesting. I like that one a lot. And then also, I loved Changeling, which is about two girls, they're cousins, and one is adopted, and then the adopted girl's mother ends up getting pregnant and having a baby, and it's all about her feelings about that, and it's called Changeling. They become convinced that this new baby's not real and it's a changeling, so things happen with that, and I thought that one was really interesting, and I liked that one. I gave that one 5 stars. I enjoyed Alga Bloom, which is about a lake in the summer and friendship, and in this lake there's an alga bloom, and it just was very nostalgic. There are lakes around here. I grew up going to lakes. There are times in the summer where they do get alga bloom and you can't swim in them, so it just reminds me a lot of that. It made me nostalgic for that. Fiddler Fool Pair, I gave a 4, and that one is a fairy story, fairy and poker story, basically. People going into the fairyland and betting things, from their hair to their fingernails to their first kiss, the memory of their first kiss. And I liked that one a whole lot too. I also gave a 4 to Take Only What Belongs to You. So those are my favorites. There was a few others I only gave a 2 to. So I did like this a whole lot. There was definitely some that I really, really enjoyed and I would read again. And there were some that I didn't like so much, but overall, 4s and 5s, enough for me to give it a 3.75. I'm almost done with my first page, guys. I read Beauty Land. I had to return that to the library, and that is by Beauty Land by Marie Helen Bertino. I ended up giving that a 3.75. This is about a girl named Dina, I believe, and she is born a little early, and she's a little jaundiced, and she's a little weird, and she doesn't feel like she fits in. And in fact, she thinks that she's an alien, and she was sent down to Earth to collect data about this world that we are living in, and she gets a fax machine and she communicates with her people through fax machine, and sometimes she'll dream and she'll get these messages from her beings, and her beings are, they don't need bodies, they've devolved past that. So we get information, little bits and bobs of information about this alien species she is supposedly a part of, but it's mostly about her life and growing up and coming of age, feeling different and like she's not fitting in, and etc. So it was just interesting. I enjoyed it. It dragged a little bit for me. I didn't love it as much as some people seem to, but I did enjoy it overall. I read Let Us Descend by Jasmine Word. Jasmine. And this is a slavery story. We follow a slave named Annis, and she is sold off and is forced to walk very treacherously, being chained to the other slaves to go to the place that she is sold to. And it is awful and horrendous and hard to read, but at the same time, beautifully written. And there's also a bit of a fantastical element to this, where she's speaking to gods, sort of goddesses / ancestors, and trying to just survive what she has been put through. And it is a good story. I ended up giving it a 3.75. The ending kind of lost me a little bit, but I still really enjoyed it and I would recommend. I gave The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson 4 stars, and this starts my 4 stars stack. And I liked this one. This is also in the Giante's Inferno vlog, if you want to check it out. But this is sort of a girl who's in this puritanical, culty community, and she's looked down upon because her mother died in childbirth. She's thought to be cursed because her mother had an affair with someone, and she's looked down upon and not really seen as pure or whatever it is that these people believe. They're super religious. They believe there are actual witches. They've burned the witches in the past, and she kind of goes on a journey to figure out what the heck is going on, because all of a sudden there are these plagues / curses being put on the town, and people are dying and people are getting sick, and the water is becoming undrinkable. So she becomes on a journey to figure out her ancestry and what the heck is going on. And I gave it a 4. I liked it. There's a little bit of a minor love story in here too. And I really liked the atmosphere and just the vibes of it overall as well. Oh, there's a bookmark in here. I read A Curse Carved in Bone by Daniel L. Jensen. This is the sequel to, what was the first one called, guys? A Fate Inked in Blood. This is the sequel to A Fate Inked in Blood. And this is a duology, so this is the conclusion of that story. We have Bjorn and Feyre, and it's a romantasy. It's pretty, I would say, more fantasy heavy leaning. And a lot of people didn't like the first one that much. I gave it 5 stars. I really liked it. I had fun with it. I like the Norse mythology in it. And I had trouble with the first half of this, but then the last half I really enjoyed. I liked the way everything came together. In the end, there are reveals in the first one, so I can't really talk about this too much without giving you spoilers, but we have Feyre, we have Bjorn. Feyre is from a fishing village. She's married to this jerk guy who has a drop of god blood in him so he can help the town get fish. And she's married to him, and she doesn't want to be married to him, but she is. And these warriors come to town and discover that she is a shield maiden. She also has a drop of blood in her, and they scoop her up, and she's forced to marry this guy because of prophecies, etc. And the story goes from there, and she ends up falling for the guy that she's married to's son. So, drama. Messy. And I enjoyed this one. If you read the first one and you liked it, I would encourage you to pick up the second one, but please remember what happened in the first one. There are some wrap-ups on YouTube that are done really well, but I definitely had trouble at first getting back into the world, even though I did go out of my way to listen to a 45-minute wrap-up of it. But I did enjoy it, that series overall. I gave it 4 stars. I actually liked it better than, guys, why can't I remember? Too many books in the brain. Oh my gosh. Traitor Queen is the second one. What's the first one? Oh, Traitor Queen. Oh, The Bridge Kingdom. She also wrote The Bridge Kingdom. And I actually like this duology better than that duology. That duology doesn't have magic in it. This one does. And I like the magic. That's why I want fantasy. I want to have some magical, mystical things in it. But yeah, I enjoyed it. There were some reveals that I thought were crazy. And I read Wretch by Eric LaRocca. That's actually one I read recently. That was another arc. Ended up giving that a 4.25. The ending of that, woo, I loved it. I loved the ending of it. It was so good. But this is about a gay man named Simeon, and he lost his partner. He's having a real hard time. He's having a real hard time carrying on with his life. He lost his job. He's not paying any attention to his son. He's not doing well, going online to find connections with people. And he comes across this support group where the support group members claim that they can find signs of their loved ones after they've passed away in photographs. So he comes involved with that, and then that leads him to going to see this other guy named Porcelain Claw, and he can maybe give you a moment with your loved one in the physical sense. So, and then he kind of gets unraveled from there. And I thought it was really good. The first half was kind of slow, and I kind of had to hang in there for a bit. Once it picked up, I flew through the end of it. So I gave it a 4.25. Eric LaRocca likes to bring in chat room stuff, and there's even a 1-act play in here. So there is a bit other elements being pulled to create this story. And in the beginning, it's like, what is going on? I don't know. But then they all come together wonderfully, and I ended up really enjoying it. So I gave it a 4.25. I would read that one again, actually. I think that's one I might end up picking up a physical copy of for myself. I read When the Reckoning Comes by LaTanya McQueen, and this is a story, I give it a 4.5. And this is another story with racism and slavery as a focus. It is in the South. There is a woman named Mira. Yes, there's a woman named Mira. She's a black woman, and she tried to get out of her town because of all the crappy, racism and segregation-ish stuff going on. And she got out, but then she gets invited back because her white friend is having her wedding at a plantation, which also does kind of reenactments of slavery, which is really weird, gross. She doesn't want to go, but against her better judgment, she ends up going. And in the past, her and her friend who's also Black had an experience at this plantation, which seemed to be somewhat supernatural. So they go to this wedding, some violent things start happening, and maybe these ghosts come out and try to seek revenge. Maybe not. I don't want to tell you, but it is a good book. It is a hard read, lots of commentary in it, but I'd recommend 4.5. I'm starting to lose steam, guys, so I'm sorry. Maybe I should start with the ones I like the most so I don't lose steam. But then I really wouldn't want to do the ones I don't like. Anyway, I read On Sunday She Picked Flowers. I have a full vlog on this one. I really enjoyed this. This is about a woman. She's in her 40s. She's still living with her mother, who is very abusive. Horribly abusive person. She escapes that situation. She goes and lives in a cabin. She gets some cottagecore vibes. She starts having a homestead. She sells things in town and etc. She becomes one with the forest, and she might even eat some dirt. And then she has this creature that maybe leaves things on her step. Then she meets a woman, and she has a relationship with her, and she discovers that maybe she can't escape some things from her past by just moving out to the woods. Maybe she has to deal with the trauma, or maybe cycles will start repeating itself. So this gets a little crazy, gets a little wild, gets a little interesting, but I really liked this one a whole lot. It just missed the 5-star mark. I gave it a 4.5. I read The Sword of Kaigen, and that I also gave a 4.5 by Emma Wang. I loved this one. I loved the relationship. This is a war story, but also a fantasy. They have elemental magic in it. And I thought it was like a historical fantasy type, like no technology and things. But yes, they have technology. This particular village does not have technology because they're in the outskirts, and that's not something that the government or the emperor or whatever has brought to them. So, but this village is known for their soldiers. They're known as the Sword of Kaigen, but they're in a peacetime, but they're still fighting to become soldiers to make sure that they still have it just in case there's war. So we have Mamoru, and he is the son of a warrior. His mother's name is Misaki, so it's primarily a story of Mamoru and Misaki and their journey. We get some of her growing up, and we get a lot of Mamoru as well, him training. I think he's like 13 or 14. He's pretty young still. And then something happens, and there's battles and sadness, and it ripped my heart out a little bit, but I really liked it. The first 3/4 of the book, it was a 5-star. The last quarter popped it down a little bit. It's just like weirdness at the end that took it down for me. But overall, I really enjoyed that story. Magnificent, standalone-ish kind of book, and I recommend it. What's next? I read The Test by Sylvain Novelle. This is a very short 100-page novella about a test. 30 questions, I think, that you have to take in Britain. This is fake, not real. And you have to take this test to become a citizen, and it gets very Black Mirror-y, and it's very quick, but it kept me like on the edge of my seat the whole time. I ended up giving it 5 stars. Everything is Tuberculosis was also 5 stars by John Green. And this just has a lot of commentary about how tuberculosis is a curable disease. We don't even see it mostly among people in the US. It's not something we even have to worry about anymore. I remember being a kid, and you used to have to get the TB test every time you went to the doctor to make sure you didn't have TB. Now my kids didn't even have to get them. So in certain parts of the world, it's very rare, but there are parts of the world where TB is still a thing, and it's still a killer, and we have what it takes to combat this disease. But if parts of the world, depending on where you're born, you might not have access to the medications and preventative things. This is about that and the injustices of the world, and the haves and the have-nots, and the people that have all the money not giving the money to the people that need the money. And I am not an expert on any of those things, but I never think it's a bad thing to read about the injustices of the world, even though they're hard to read about. I definitely understand people not wanting to read about it, but I still force myself to read about things such as this because I think it's important to know the world right now is a mess, and it's been a mess forever. And sadly, I think right now we know and we see more of it. And I mean, because of who our president is, it just seems even crazier. But it is important to stay informed, read things that maybe you don't want to read because you'd prefer not to know. But guess what? This is our world, and you should engage with it in a way where you are somewhat informed. This was very good. I gave it 5 stars. This was also 5 stars. This is Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Bright. Poppy Z. Bright is a trans man author. When they wrote this, they were not transitioned yet. This was written when they were a teenager, and it was their first book. And he wrote this when he was very, very young. But when I was a teenager, I read this and I became obsessed with it. It was a core part of my growing up. It is queer, it has queer characters in it, and it has the atmosphere of incense and patchouli and clove and the 90s and The Cure and Bauhaus and all those things. We follow a bunch of different characters in here. It's a vampire story. My favorite part about it is that first chapter. We have Nothing, who's a teenager, and he's a vampire, but he doesn't know it. And he goes on a journey to figure out who the heck he is. He comes in contact with these other vampires. They're very much a different species in this. There's incest in it. There's underage activity in it with people that are older. There is sexual assault in it. So there's a lot of things in here. It doesn't all hold up, but it still has a very special place in my heart. So it's always going to be a 5-star for me. I understand why people have some issues with it. I completely understand, but it is just a vibe for me. And I wish I still had my old copy, my first copy, but unfortunately it got lost along the way. But I did a reread. I did a reread in February, and I'm glad I did. I got to annotate for the first time, and I also got to see that maybe I don't like everything about this book, but it's still going to be a 5 for me because of the nostalgia of it all. And how I went from this and still got into Twilight, I don't know, but this is a vampire story. It was the first queer book I read. I don't even know, like my best friend at the time was a gay dude, and he was the first queer person I knew. So it's just like opened up a whole world for me, you know, and it's an important book in my life. Poppy Z. Bright is an important author in my life. I will always look fondly on it. And that's all I'm going to say. That's a lot. Anyway, I read The Faraway Inn by Sarah Beth Durst. This one is coming out soon in March, and I really, really loved it. This is Sarah Beth Durst's cozy fantasy, like Spell Shop and Enchanted Greenhouse. However, this is not in that world. It is in our world, and it's young adult, but I actually thought this was just as good as those other two. She's 16, our main character, but I thought it was fantastic. I still really loved it. It is about a 16-year-old named Calissa, and she is going into her senior year of high school, and she has a bad breakup. Her boyfriend cheats on her, and she runs off to an inn where her great auntie Z, is an inn, so she runs off there, and she wants to stay there for the summer. And then she finds all about all these magical things about the inn, and it's wonderful, and she falls for the groundskeeper's son. She has to unravel the mystery of this inn. It's not doing so well. Auntie Z is like tired and not sure she can run it anymore. And the people who come to this inn are magical or maybe from other worlds. Calissa, learning about her family and her history and helping out in this inn, and it's super cute. There's sentient there's statues maybe that move. There's a cat. There is very interesting characters, which were all very well done. The world building is done great. It's super cozy. If you're in the mood for a cozy, I would recommend it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful book. I really loved it. Sarah Beth Durst, she has like worlds in her head. Her head contains multitudes of places. I love her. I don't know where she comes up with these things. I did miss the sentient plants. There's no sentient plants in this one. There's a sentient mirror. I loved the mirror. He's very grumpy and he's mean and he's not very nice, but he's there. And then my favorite book of the month, drum roll, I'm just obnoxious now, is Where I End by Sophie White. And Sarah from Wicked Reading recommended this. I watched her vlog on it, and then Brianna actually had read this too, and I was already planning on reading it, but I was like, now I really have to read it. This is dark, guys. It is bleak. It's probably one of the bleakest books I've ever read. The ending is bleak. Everything about it's bleak. It's about a girl. She is a teenager, I think, like older teen. And she's grown up in this house with her mother that doesn't move. She's bedridden. And her grandmother, who is not that woman's mother, it's that woman's mother-in-law. And her father, who's never around, he comes around every once in a while. It is about them caring for her / abusing her mother. And she also becomes obsessed with this woman on the island. yeah, it's just the unraveling of it and everything. And I don't even know what to say. Blarg. So it is bleak, it is atmospheric, it is horrifically beautiful as well. And you're not going to like anybody in it. They're all awful. Everybody's awful. Every last one. Yeah, it is rough. So the mom, she's bedridden, but sometimes they find her in places. So she can move, but she never moves in front of anybody. And you don't know what's going on with her. You do slowly figure out what happened along with our main character, because she's never known her mother to move. And there's some heartbreaking stuff in here. You know, she just doesn't care about her mother anymore because she's never had a relationship with her. She's begged her to move. She's sat on her when she was a child and she cared, just wanting her mother to hug her, and she can't or won't. Yeah, so it's a rough read. It's a bleak read, but it's beautiful. I loved it, and it's not one I'm going to forget anytime soon. And if you can handle it, I recommend checking it out. It is too much, too many books. I don't even know what I said, to be honest, with all that. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. That is it for me for this month's wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, comment down below. I love it. If you want to just leave an emoji, you can leave me a book stack, because I read a big stack of books, and I hope to see you again soon.